Last week I demonstrated integrating iTunes and Syncom Smalltalk using AppleScript on the Mac. Figured today I'd do the Windows version of this, showing how to integrate Syncom Smalltalk with iTunes using COM. Turns out there have been some nice improvements to the COM Connect inside VisualWorks 7.6, so let's go ahead and get that stuff loaded. We'll bring up the Parcel Manager, and once the Parcel Manager comes up, we'll go to OS Windows, select COM All, and we'll load that. Now I'm going to pause this while that loads because there's an awful lot of code here to load. Okay, so having gotten all of COM loaded, the next step is to come here and look at the new tools we've got. So let's go to the Tools menu. Under COM, you'll notice there's this new option called Browse Automation Classes. If I select that, what I'm going to bring up is something that looks like a familiar four-pane browser. However, it's a little different. Over here, instead of Smalltalk packages, I've got COM classes or categories. So let's go down and find something interesting like iTunes. So I select the iTunes type library, and over here I get all the various iTunes options. Scrolling down, I find the iTunes app. Now, I don't have iTunes running right now, but I can look over here at all the methods that are exported, and the one I'm going to use in a few minutes here is this one down here, subscribe to podcast. I'm going to take the podcast we create here, Industry Misinterpretations, and I'm going to toss that from Smalltalk over to iTunes. And the way I can do that, even without having to write any code, just in experimental fashion, is to right-click here and get this Create and Inspect. What that's going to do is give me a dispatch driver that isn't in code in the sense that I can reuse this code afterwards, but it gives me something I can experiment with, and in a future video I'll show you how to write the code that sits behind what I'm doing right now. So, having done that, what it did is it brought up something right away. It brought up iTunes for me, and of course iTunes is going to complain to me saying, well, it's not your default player, which I don't care about, and I'm hoping it doesn't offer to download 7.6.1, so I'm just going to iconify that for the moment. But you can see I'm not subscribed to anything in here, so let's iconify that. And now the thing it actually brought up that's useful is this little window here. And this has all the APIs listed, like this one of interest down here, subscribe to podcast. And you see I've got some simplified syntax I can use that's more Smalltalk-like instead of this. And I can try that out. I can come down here in this little workspace area and type self subscribe to podcast : and now I'm going to put in the URL for our podcast, syncomsmalltalk.com/rssblog/blog_podcast.xml, and that's the RSS feed for it. So I hit do it. It's going to tell me, I don't know about that API. It's because it's kind of a virtual API that's going to be tossed over to COM. So I'll hit proceed. And what you're going to see now, well, nothing in particular yet, but if I bring iTunes back up, you'll notice that a couple of things have happened. One, Industry Misinterpretations is now in the subscribed list, and by this little activity you can see that it's downloading the podcast. And you can't see the progress it's making, but if I bring this over a little bit, you can see that it's mostly done. So that's pretty much it. I can do all kinds of interesting experimentation with this kind of thing, and I can do that all inside of this. And once I've gotten all this understood, the code that sits behind this is not hard to figure out. I've got a little screencast using the Flash technology that I put out for Smalltalk Daily. I'll do a video demonstrating that over the next couple days.